to opt out of the Federation. Well, my friends, the Federation failed, and we lost a great opportunity to integrate and empower ourselves. You are watching Caribbean Insight, the only place where history is being revealed. Here is the Mighty Sparrow, 1962 Calypso King, with his explanation of Federation.
People want to know why Jamaica run from the Federation. Yes, they want to know why Jamaica run away from the Federation. Jamaica have a right to speak your mind. That is my opinion. And if you believe in democracy, you'll agree with me. But they know they didn't want Federation. And they know they didn't want to unite as one. Independence was at the door. Why did they speak before? This is no time to say you are federating. No. Oy, oy, oy. Oy, oy. Ah, yeah, 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 When they didn't get the capital site, that nearly caused big fight. When Sir Grandly Adams took up his post, that even made things worse for them. We don't want no Bajan premier. Trinidad can be capital for them. So the grumbling went on and on to a big referendum. But if they know, they didn't want Federation. And they know they didn't want to unite as one. Tell the doctor. Tell the doctor you're not in favor. Don't behave like a big traitor. How the devil you mean? You are federating no more. Yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry, but no federation again. I think it's a big shame. After so much effort and energy to everybody, right now it's only a memory. We failed miserably. Some may say we shouldn't help party, but the Jamaica West started. If they know, they didn't want Federation. And they know they didn't want to unite as one. Tell the doctor. Tell the doctor you're not in favor. Don't behave like a big figure. This is no time to say you are federating no more. Are you too? You vote against it? Well, it's your powerful. It's your powerful over there. Federation boiled down to simply this: dog eat dog, survival of the fittest. Everybody fighting for independence, singularly. Trinidad too, for instance. Well, we get it too, so don't bother. But I find we should all be together, not separated as we are. Because of Jamaica, if they know, they didn't want Federation. And they know they didn't want to unite as one. Tell the doctor. Tell the doctor you're not in favor. Don't behave like a blasted paper. This is no time to say you are federating no more. Outside my head. Oh, yes, the master himself, the master himself, the master himself, the mighty Sparrow Slinger Francisco, one of the classics of Calypso Federation, taking us back in time, the history. When the Caribbean was one country for a brief moment, 1958 to 1962. The 1962, the Jamaicans called the federation, called a plebiscite, a referendum, asking the Jamaicans whether they wanted to stay in the federation or not. And the vote was along party lines. The Jamaica Labour Party under Sir Alexander Bustamante did not favor federation. He felt that Jamaica as a big island would be swamped by small islanders. And so they went to a vote, and the supporters of the GLP voted to get out of the federation, and they were the majority at the time. And so Jamaica exited the federation. There were 10 countries in the federation. And Dr. Eric Williams, as witty as he was, he said, 1 from 10 leaves not. 1 from 10 leaves not. Indicating that if Jamaica opted out, basically that was the end of it, because Jamaica at that time had what we could call the largest economy, the most prosperous economy in the English-speaking Caribbean. And if they were not part of the federation, then it really did not mean very much. And Sparrow, of course, captured that moment with the breakup of the federation. What Sparrow did not capture in his Calypso was the fact that Guyana, British Guyana at that time, was not part of the federation. British Guyana at that time was not part of the federation. The People's Progressive Party, PPP, under Dr. Cheddi Jagan, which was in office at the time, opted not to take Guyana into the federation, basically arguing that Indian Guyanese felt that should they go into the federation, they would become a minority and the likelihood of oppression. And Dr. Jagan opted to stay out of the federation. There were other reasons he gave, but basically that it was. There was an exchange in 1956 between Dr. Jagan and E.U.C. Quine, and then Sidney King. And the question of federation was very much part of that exchange. Dr. Jagan gave his Congress paper. The Congress was held in New Amsterdam. Sidney King could not attend the conference. He was restricted to Boston at the time. And he replied to Dr. Jagan's Congress paper. There's an interesting exchange. But Jagan chose not to take Guyana into the federation. So Guyana was not part of the 10. It was not part of the 10. And that caused the second split in the PPP. Most people know of the first split when Mr. Burnham left, and he took with him Jai Narain Singh and Dr. Lachman Singh and others. But then there was a second split in 1956 of what was left of the PPP. This was when Martin Carter, Rory Westmus, Keith Carter, Sidney King, when they left, and they left on 2 grounds. One, that the PPP did not take Guyana into the Federation, the West Indies Federation. They wanted Guyana to be part of the Federation. Dr. Jagan thought otherwise. And they also left on a second count, and that was the Indianization of the PPP. Because as Burnham leaves with Jainarang Singh and Lachman Singh, C.R. Jacobs, Mr. Bihari, the cigarette man, these were all big Indian business people who were anti-communist and wanted nothing to do with the PPP in 1953. They now entered the PPP. The Biharis and C.R. Jacobs and Balram Singh Rai and so on. And Sidney King said the PPP and Dr. Jagan have lost confidence in the African executives, and they took their exit because, and Jagan justified the coming in of the Indian business class. He referred to them as patriotic Guyanese. But it was the sight of business people joining a communist party. Quite interesting. Those who said that we should not talk about race and ethnicity when Indian business people are joining a communist party, and you had the other side. What was there of well, it wasn't black businessmen, but black middle class. Middle class don't not necessarily like socialism, but the black middle class is joining the PNC, what was known then as the Burnhamite PPP. So you had that realignment on both sides. Indian business people are joining the Communist Party, the PPP, the black middle class. Because when Burnham left, he, like I said, a lot of the prominent blacks in the PPP didn't go with him. Martin Carter, Sidney King, etc. Now, with the Indian business class pouring into the PPP, the black middle class began to rally around Burnham. Sidney King left the PPP, he didn't go out of politics. He went into the PNC, became vice chairman and later general secretary and editor of New Nation. In a sense, became probably the second most powerful person in the PNC. And then John Carter. These are the black middle class now, what we in the old days called redskin people. And remember when we say redskin in those days, it wasn't necessarily fair skin, because somebody like Llewellyn John was very dark, but he was considered redskin in those days because his family was well-to-do. And they belonged to the League of Colored People, which was the leading black organization at the time. And they formed a political party, the UDP. And so the UDP merged with the Burnhamite PNC, the Burnhamite PPP, and Sidney King, and formed the PNC. I remember years ago I was on a radio program in Washington, D.C. And then I got a call, and somebody said, Sir John Carter wants to speak with you. I said, Sir John Carter wants, because in those days, Sir John Carter, Sir John Carter. And it was his wife, and I said, yes, I'll speak with him. And he came on and he said, Mr. Hines, I heard you on the radio, and I need to speak with you and tell you about the history of the formation of the PNC. And I said, of course, Sir John. So I went over to Sir John, and we had tea. When people talk about tea, it's in the morning. Well, here I gone to John Carter, afternoon at 5 o'clock, and we're having tea at 5 o'clock. We decided to get tea in the morning or in the night. And we had tea, and he said, David, I'm going to tell you, C.L.R. James is the one that brought me and Burnham together. C.L.R. James had come to do some lectures in Guyana, and he was giving some lectures at QC. And, Burnham didn't want to coalesce with Carter. You see, the black middle class didn't treat Burnham well when he came back. He was dark-skinned. He was from the country because in those days, Kitty was a country. And his father was a schoolmaster. So he wasn't middle class. And the black middle class didn't treat him well. And if you know Burnham, he intended to stick to them. The PNC was really supposed to be a merger between the GAR-UF and the Burnhamite faction, the Burnhamite PPP. But apparently the UF struck a hard bargain, which Burnham was not able to give in to. And it was after that breakdown of the UF and the Burnhamite PPP forming the PNC. When that broke down, it's when Sir John said CLR James stepped in and said, the other side is rallying around one party and one leader, and the Africans need to rally around. And so John said that's how he and Burnham sat down and they formed the PNC. And then later on, Sidney King came over, and the rest is history. You know, I as last night. Thanks so much for you all for your comments and responses. Last night we were going through Mr. Jack Dio, and I got into trouble. Quite a few people called to say I should not refer to Mr. Jack Dio as Mr. You know, and oh my God, it's where the PPP has taken over people. I understand. I understand. You know, they were vehement. At least two people. They were vehement, and they said, you know, we support you and so on. But we don't like when you call Jack Dio Mr. That Jack Dio would never call you Dr. Hines or Mr. Hines. And, you know, I understand the place where that comes from. It comes from a place of deep alienation. So when the PNC, the PPP walking about and say, oh, black people coming to, they really don't understand what is happening in the black community. They're telling me, we are angry that you refer to him as Mr. Jack Dio. And they're very clear that he would not call me Mr. Hines or Dr. Hines. And it's people like me who Jack Dio referred to as socializing black people to be vicious. No, they, by their policies, are socializing black people to be vicious and then putting people like myself in the crossfire. My politics, I'm a Quietite, and my politics is not a politics of hate. You know, it's hard for me not to say Mr. Jack Dio, because my politics is not about the individual. It's about what the individual represents. That is what I fight against. What Bob Marley put it, I not come to fight flesh and blood, but to fight wickedness in high and low places. I live by that. You know, I don't know that I will have a beer with Jack Dio or anything like that. We have always been cordial when we bump into each other, as I'm cordial to all political people. So my politics is not the politics of that deep hate and disrespect, and I would never allow Jack Dio to make me decide how I am going to address the world. I may have even addressed him as brother Barrett. You know, I come from that. So I just want to say, Jack Dio and the PPP should really understand the deep resentment that they have socialized among, I would say, a large section of African Guyanese, and they in turn project that on us. It's hard for me to think, and you know, there's sometimes you have to talk to your people, your followers, whatever they choose to call themselves. You know, I understand the place that it comes from. But I would say one thing in passing to those brothers, and I'm sure there are many others like them who felt the same way, that I should not be so nice to Jack Dio. I would tell them that I'm a keen listener of the folk. And they get Mr. and they get Mr. Right? You know them lady, when the man they behave bad in the community and they talking the man, the name and the, as they used to call them in the village, the hangman, them passing. They say, look the mister passing there. Look the mister. There's a difference between the mister and mister. So if it means anything, really when I refer to Jack Dio's mister, is them lady mister were passing there attacking about. Right? But you know, in a real sense, I would like to socialize, help to socialize a new consciousness among African Guyanese. And there is no place in my politics at this time for anti-Indian racism or anti-any group. I'm not for that. My Black consciousness is a pro-Black. That's where I want African people to go, pro-Black. I'm not interested in an anti-Indian racism. If you're looking for somebody to lead that, go somewhere else. But I understand how that anti-Indianism is seeping in to the ranks of our people. Because after all, they look across and they see the state hammering them with an anti-Africanism. But I have to say that I have no place for anti-Indianism. And secondly, I am not socializing Black people to be bad behave. I want a conscious African people, a militant African people, and that your militancy must be based on your consciousness. And your consciousness must come from a place of self-love. So, to the brothers who berated me for referring to Mr. Jack Dio's Mr., I apologize. And I know where you all are coming from. I know. One of the things with this social media now is that you're able to converse your people in real time. I look at your comments in the comment section. Those of you who managed to get me and we managed to talk, I hear from you. I know what's going on in the ranks. But you all give me a pass. I can't. I have to say, Mr. Jack Dio, because that is our grow up. And I'm talking here not just growing up, but politically growing up. My politics are a politics of representation, both in terms of my own representation, but also about what those who I challenge, what they represent. My challenge is about what Jack Dio represents, and not Jack Dio, the person. It's not my politics. I understand the role of individuals in the shaping of politics. I know that. I understand the importance, and I apply that when necessary. But that's not the place I start. I start from the place that human beings are inherently good. And that insofar as human beings become bad, it is because conditions and policies and ambition drive them in that direction. So I don't believe that Jack Doe is inherently bad. I don't believe that Jack Doe is the devil. He may be devilish. He may institute devilish policies. But I do not start from this point of view that as a human being, he's a devil. And so therefore, you all give me a pass. Asking you all for a pass. If you all hear me say, Mr. Jack Dio, understand that it's difficult for me to be disrespectful to him, even though he's disrespectful to Black people, to poor people, to me, to my comrades. I'm racer, right? And as I said, in any case, they got Mr. and they get Mr. And I rather think that my instincts drive me in the second Mr. Look at the Mr. there. Look at the Mr. there. All right. Yes, we have GHK Lall here tonight. And GHK Lall knows more about these things than John Jones said he has a devilish character. Daddy says, what Daddy says, I love you all. Mr. Jackass Dio. All right, you all helping me out. You all helping me out. You all helping me out. You know, in Buxton, the young people are always rebuking their parents and auntie and son who's me age group. You know, when me age group people calling me David or Twilly, the children and grandchildren said, Mommy or Daddy is Dr. Hines. And they would retort, all right, I'll make a compromise, Dr. Twilly. oh God. All right, you all helping me out how to deal with Mr. Jack Dio. All right, welcome. It's Tuesday night, and we have GHK Lall here. And I know last month when GHK was here, we had quite a program. And, you know, many of you were so touched. I was on Kidaki program the next morning. And, you know, you all get to call in there. And people told me our last program with GHK Lall really resonated. And you see, as someone who studies ethnic politics and ethnic societies, and I don't trifle around with race. I don't wish away race. I quite understand. And as I said in that last program, and I may have said many times after and before, when the people of one ethnic group in an environment of environment that we have right now, you all notice how you all respond to me when I refer to them as Mr. In that kind of environment, when somebody of one ethnic group is able to touch the soul, and I'm using soul here in its cultural sense, the soul of a critical mass of the other ethnic group, I think we are then making progress on race. If you put me and JFK face together, that don't make progress with race. That's window dressing. They call it photoshopping now. But when a GHK Lall could come to an audience like this, and I have to admit this audience is very pro-Black, and get this audience to key into what he's saying, not at the level of the lip, but at the level of the soul. I think it's then we are making progress as a race. As a country, sorry, then we are making progress. We're not making progress with those window shopping. We're not making progress when the PNC can get 5% crossover vote from Indians, and the PPP can get 5% crossover vote from Black people, and we call that racial progress. No. That's not racial progress. I think we are making progress at the level of race relations. When, first of all, we're able to feel the hurt of the other side without denying the hurt of your side. You feel the hurt of the other side without denying the hurt of your side. And you're able to connect to the critical mass of the other side, and they're able to absorb the energies that you bring. I think we are making some progress there. I break with the pact of this cosmetic race thing. It's going nowhere. And our political parties are not going to improve our race relations. I think it's agents of socialization outside of the political parties who are going to make a difference and create the conditions. We can't change race relations. We can create the conditions for the critical mass of us to imagine another Guyana in which all the groups that tenant it can feel ownership of the home. And that is our objective. That is our objective. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Let me bring in GHK Lall. GHK, my brother.
Good evening.
I'm not going to get in trouble tonight, I'm sure, by calling you, brother. Last night I got into trouble by calling Mr. Jack Dio. And I was well roasted. Tonight I don't think I'll be roasted by calling you brother Gabriel or brother GHK. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, and I'm glad to be here. It's good to hear you say those words.
Thank you. And before I start to talk with brother, I just want to send out condolences to the Booker family from Buxton. As you know, they are part owners of this program and all the other programs. And I grew up with the Booker children. The passing of their mother, Miss Booker, as we all know her, she was 101 years old. And we have talked about her on this program several times. She's fought a good fight. And the battle is over. You know, she has now gone to the Almighty. And they informed me today I had not heard that she had passed. And condolences to the book, because I mentioned in this program many times, you know, the two biggest dry goods store in the market was Miss Booker and Miss Cannell. They were two sisters, and they had stalls opposite each other. And they had the ardent supporters. Me auntie was a Booker. So when I go, I got to go and buy from Miss Booker. I tell Miss Cannell, morning Miss Cannell, but I buy it from Miss Booker. And the one time I bought something that Miss Booker didn't have, and I buy it from Miss Cannell at home, and I tell me auntie, well, I buy this from Miss Cannell because Miss Booker didn't have. She put a good scolding on me. She said, it is not that you shouldn't have bought it from Miss Cannell, but you must come home. Tell me, Miss Booker, and let me send you back and say, go to Miss Cannell. And Miss condolences to the family, the Booker family, the Gentle family. Denise Booker is always on here on this program. Danette, you know, all of the Bookers, and the Gentle family. My condolences to you all, and I'm going to give you the information for the viewing and funeral and all of those things as we go through the week. The passing of a legend from my village, someone who whose activities as an entrepreneur, and I'm using that word, I'm using deliberately, as a woman entrepreneur, really helped to build the sense of community that so many of us today take for granted. Gabriel, tomorrow is the 1st of May. It's an important day in the national calendar, the regional calendar, the world calendar. It's Workers' Day. And your generation, my generation, we grew up with May Day being a solemn, an important day. Even if we didn't get everything, we knew something was important about this day when we were growing up. And even today, as trade unions are under the gun, so to speak, by developments in the world and by their own governments and so forth, we still obviously believe that May Day, Labor Day, is an important day. Am I right in that evaluation, or or you think otherwise? Let me hear what you have to say.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here with you. Thank you for the kind words you have said. Yes, Labor Day is an important day. It's a vitally important one, and it's even more so important now at this time in our workers' circumstances. I'm thinking that tomorrow is a national holiday, a good thing, in recognition of the sacrifices of before, of what the stalwarts gave, and where their children are today, where their descendants are in the public service, in the teachers' ranks, and where we are as a nation in terms of an incredible patrimony. The holiday is there, and our workers should be really joyful. Our workers across the board should be happy, should be happy because of what we have and how they are participating in it. But because it is not so, because instead of a road that connects us, worker to government, worker to community, worker to employer, we've got these fences that are erected. We've got these diatribes and tirades that have become too commonplace. We've taken them for granted, and they color our conversations, they stain our consciences. How can we, in good conscience, my brother, and that's not a reciprocation, that's a conviction. That's a conviction. That's the love that we must have. We must love where there's hate. I mean, I heard you talk about us being one, etc., and I remember the prophet Isaiah. And I didn't come here, where every tear will be dried from their eyes and all of that. And I didn't come to tell you about Matthew or any one of those gospels and about I give you a new commandment. I mean, we've got to have that deep inside of us to understand and to identify with where our workers are on Labor Day and every day that they labor. They labor in the trenches, whether as a public servant, as a policeman, as an army man, as a minimum wage man, as a teaching man or woman, as a student aspiring to be a teacher, as a nurse, as a porter, a public service helper, transporter. Our labor force, of which the public service and the teachers are a significant fraction, ought to be in a place of joy and some more hope tomorrow because their foundation is built on what is ours, because they have tasted those fruits, because they are considered to be partners in in a journey of discovery, in a journey of inclusion, in a journey of respect. And when our trade unions recognize trade unions, not no rogue outfit, recognized under the umbrella, the tent of collective bargaining, are bypassed and neglected and in some ways, many ways disrespected, then what we have is not a joyful Labor Day. What we have is not a heartfelt Labor Day. What we have is an energy that is stirring, that galvanizes our workers to to a state of militancy. What is here should not be present. What we are living with is not a livable wage. What we are forced to endure is not what should be in this time of Guyana. That's where our workforce is. That's where our teachers are. That's where our public servants are. And dare I say, that's where our private sector workers are, the ones at the minimum scales in the brackets. We cannot expect to be millionaires at this time overnight, but we can expect to have enough in our pockets to care for more than necessities. When our workers cannot do that, what kind of Labor Day do we have tomorrow? When our workers are routinely, their bargaining agents are routinely disdained, disdained and held in contempt, so to speak, and pushed around and looked down upon, then how can we say that the essence of labor and the substance of Labor Day is what is palpable? What is palpable in it that's got so much promise, so much potential, the Dr. Hines, that are being realized, that are in hand to some considerable extent, not marginally, not minimally, but to some extent. I would love to say, I would love to say that the government of the day has done what is right and just by our labor force. It has not been so. It has not been so. And because of that, I'm going to have to kind of speak that song so beautifully. All is not well with my soul. As a worker, it's not well with my soul. And that's a very hard place for us to be ready to greet and to sharing in Labor Day tomorrow.
GHK Lall, it is not well with my soul, and you all Christians, no, 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 no. It is well with my soul. And he's saying, as workers, it is not well with my soul. Workers are being uh, given a hard time by this government. Mr. Jagdeo said that we on our side, it means the opposition, do not want black people to get rich. We do not want black people to get rich. And that his party wants black people to get rich. And I challenge him and to say, if he puts me in that pack, I hereby resign from that pack. I want black people to get rich. And I want him to start with two things. I want him to withdraw the appeal against the judge's ruling to give teachers a living wage. And secondly, I want him to go to Parliament with a bill asking Parliament to adopt the Buxton proposal by Professor Clive Thomas on behalf of the WPA to take 10% of the earnings of oil and divide it to each family, regardless of race and ethnicity. Because that, to me, is going to be the springboard for people getting wealthy. And workers in their condition cannot get wealthy. He said that the PNC pauperized black people by putting them in the public service. Jacques is not a fool. He's not a fool. But when you say that, a country has to have a public service. It is not where you are located as a worker. It is whether you are paid a living wage. Those farmers that we call farmers who have to farm their own little plot, their own acre, they and their family, they are workers too. They're workers too. We normally refer to them as peasants. No, they're workers because they have to work on their own land. We are all workers. And to say that because black people are in the public service, then they should be poor. Because that is what he's saying. The PNC pauperized them by putting them in the public service. I couldn't Last night I tossed in my bed when I reflected on that ignorance. But I consoled myself by saying it's not ignorance, it is part of a worldview. And he puts it crudely, but it's part of a worldview. GHK Lall, I would like you to comment on that slip. Well, it may not be a slip. I want you to comment on that thesis by Jack Dew.
Well, it's certainly politics,
There you go.
and the man may be whatever he is. He knows to play the politics well.
Yes.
He can be acidic, he can be venomous, but he knows to play the politics well, and he coats it with those things. So to say that the PNC pauperize black people by steering them into the civil service, I mean that's an insult. That's
It's
not ignorance. That's an insult, both to his political opponents and to the tens of thousands of people in the public service today, and those who were there before.
before.
And those who I was a public servant before, a junior one for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and that is demeaning. To say that anybody, any group, any 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 class of workers in a state has been pushed into a pauperized state is is to ridicule them.
Yes.
Is to ridicule them. I think that sounds to me as though it was premeditated for
Meditative.
some sort of political gain. And it goes back to where you started in your intro here, your recital. And what I keep saying, there must be some limit where we will not go. I mean, if you want to say, look, we can't put words in his mouth or anybody's mouth. If this is the state because the wages have been depressed over a considerable period of time, and so we've ended up where we are, and now we've got a lot of ground to catch up. But don't just paint that broad brush, and in essence, also saying what is unsaid there is that you deserve where you're there.
That's right. That's right.
You deserve where you're there, and part of
Exactly.
that is where you bring for yourself.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes, because of your loyalties. So there are many different ways to look at this, but I think the man knows what he's doing. So okay, all right, you are saying to me that we as the People's Progressive Party, we are different, we are better, we are nobler. Therefore, are you going to be a contributory agent to black people in the public service staying in that pauperized state? Especially given you have got total control of the purse strings. And the purse strings include all that oil money that is going into that New York bank, which ends up in what we hear to be national development priorities that somehow going primarily into wood and brick and glass and steel. In the meantime, we got people talking pre Labor Day, all the days before Labor Day and after, that all we asking for is a living wage so we could live like decent and dignified human beings and citizens of one of the richest country in the world. The PNC did that. What is distinguishing you from the PNC with this pauperization of the public service?
GHK Lall here tonight, really dissecting. And we have to do this because rhetoric is an important aspect of governance. And Jack Dio has perfected that art in a negative way. Nevertheless, it's there. And as I said, I tossed in my bed last night, all over, because I'm trying to figure out how to respond to this gentleman who is really insulting a whole group of people and does so in a way that is so uncouth. Is so uncouth, and to say that he doesn't know better is really perhaps lying on him, because I think he knows better. I think he knows better, but it is the world view that is driving these people. It is about how you distribute the resources, and you are justifying the inequitable distribution of the resources is the justification. You see, race as a phenomenon, race is really a judgment of black people that was passed in the 17th century, the 18th century, the 1700s, when it emerged in the United States of America. A judgment was made that black people are not real people, they're not equal to other human beings. And then the laws follow. The misreading of the Bible followed. The political rhetoric followed. These are all there to justify the judgment. Race is a judgment. It looks at the skin color and it makes a judgment. And once you make a judgment of this skin color, then you have to make a judgment of other skin colors. Hence, the notion of racism. You see, and that's what I'm saying. Jack Dio knows better, because he knows what he's doing is to justify why you are not giving the teachers better wages. But you're not giving them better wages because you feel that they are not important to the productive process. That as civil servants, they're really in a bottomless pit. And they got there because their leaders put them there. You're saying, therefore, that East Indians are not workers. You're saying that East Indians have no right in the public service. And so there is a logic where that takes you. There's a logic where that takes you. I am not about to allow Jack Dio to rest on these issues. People can paper them over, but I can't. We can't paper them over. It's an insult, as GHK Lall says, to the people who keep this country going, keep the wheels of government going. When that rich man wants to bank his money and he goes to the bank, is a teller. Who has to deal with him? A worker. GHK Lall, the judge, Justice Kissoon, God bless him, and I think we're allowed to say that, gave a ruling on the teachers' strike. And I can use that old-time word, it was a revolutionary ruling. But more than that, it was the response of the co-equal branch of government, that is the executive, that really puts this thing in larger perspective. Jack Dio says the judge is presumptuous. Presumptuous. Here is someone who's at the head of one branch of government talking that way about an officer in a co-equal branch of government, that the judge was presumed. And he's saying this without even reading the entire judgment. You mentioned just now that the thing about workers was premeditated. Here, this man is cussing out a judge. The judge is presumptuous without even reading the entire ruling. GHK Lall.
Jack Dio is a former president.
Yes.
He's appointed judges. I am reasonably sure that during his time, the judges were appointed. I mean, is this the respect that he shows, that he holds judges in? Do all judgments have to be in alignment with your mindset? If it's not, then you're presumptuous. You are presumptuous, you are a traitor, you are a saboteur, you are all these other things. It's got to be my way or no way. Now, look, there is a school of thought that you shouldn't comment on judges' rulings. But we have seen in the United States that there's a drift away from that. Right now, somebody just recently said that the U.S. Supreme Court, based on the Trump case, should be headquartered or should take up residence at the Republican National Convention as uh, location. Now, I think that's going far, but it's as it is. Now, Jagdev is wrong. My brother Jagdev, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this like you. Look, he could be the hater. He I leave him to be a hater, but I can't be a hater. Then hate for hate gets us more hate. We ain't going anyway. We know. Let's I we've talked about keeping this thing simple. He could have you look. You disagree, co-equal branch. I ain't too sure we down there yet. I'm looking at something I wrote elsewhere. Article 122A1. My Constitution book is missing those 5 pages. Of the Constitution says all courts and persons presiding over the court shall exercise their functions independently of the control and direction of any person or authority, and shall be free and independent from political, executive, and any other form of direction and control. Any other form of direction and control, Dr. Hines, and my brothers and sisters listening, and whomever else, any other form and direction of any other form of direction and control, I think is wide enough, expansive enough of a blanket for what Mr. Jagdeo, Dr. Jagdeo, Brother Jagdeo went out of his way to call presumptuous. Essentially, let's look at this another way. What are you doing, sir? Are you telling the judge that he only has to rule your way, according to your thinking, to not be presumptuous? How is presumptuous not about controlling and directing, just in a nuanced manner? In a nuanced manner. That's straight out of the Constitution there. Now, what was this spat about? The president meeting with teachers, selected teachers. And the judge made reference to that. The president is free to meet with whomever he wants, but he has to be prudent enough to understand, to appreciate that there's a collective bargaining process in place and it's ongoing. And his agents, the Minister of Education and the Minister of Labor, are involved in that. So for him to insert himself arbitrarily, especially when collective bargaining processes have been violated almost at will by his government, it is, and make promises to them, I think that's more than optics involved here. So this is a violation of the process, although he may say it was not on the agenda. So what was on the agenda? Let your agents handle that. Do not, the timing is wrong, the optics are wrong, the promise, if whatever promises were made were wrong. And I see the hot dog man, who's a headmaster, hollering, but he get 19 point something percent in, in comparing November to January. The budget wasn't passed yet. I don't know about anything being finalized elsewhere in terms of collective bargaining. Maybe you do, Dr. Hines. But this man talking about 19 point something percent and whatever else. So what is going on here? So the judge is taking this thing out in context and saying, here, this is what we have here. We have a difference, we have a dispute, and it's come before the courts. Let us deal, and this should not have happened in November. The vice president took it, a former president, took it upon himself to lash out at the president, at Justice Kissoon, and saying, well, he's presumptuous to do that. Why not a different word? Look, we differ. Look, I know Jagdeo is not a subtle man, but I don't think he speaks to Alistair Routledge like that. I don't think he speaks to Nicole D. Therio, Excellency, like that. So why are you disrespecting black and brown people? Why is he disrespecting his fellow Guyanese? That's where I am. That's where I am. I am saying, look, you treat me with respect, you will generate respect. You can disagree. We will disagree with various rulings at different times. We will disagree with various policies. We will have sharp, sharp departures. But it's got to be within a context of mutual respect. Look, if there's no respect for each other, then what we have is chaos, and chaos sooner or later leads to anarchy. Look, I don't know what his objective is, what he's pushing towards, but I know this: all of us. I don't think myself so much. I don't think you at all, but definitely the vice president has to tone down. He has to get some control over himself. Today's column I wrote was, the president is not a gangster rapper, and the vice president is not a street scrapper. These men are
And
not,
I want you to elaborate on that. Since you've gone there, go right ahead.
and these men are national leaders. You're gonna prove who could do something louder. You don't have. You have to show. Look, we are leaders. We are caring. We are expansive in thought. We are wise men. We are learning on the job, and we are here for you. But when we go out of the way and take a Judge Kissoon, and this started way back with that unlimited parent company guarantee
Ruling,
ruling,
yes.
where within minutes we heard about it must be predictable and will spook investors and all of that business. Here's the story: you are intervening and interjecting yourself into the judicial process and raises questions about, well, what is it you really want? What is it you really want? Only this kind of ruling that will satisfy some objective that remains unsaid. The judge says we shouldn't have done this. The judge says this is where we are about union union dues and salary deductions. Well, we're going to appeal. The government has a right to appeal. I don't think it should. I don't think it should. And going back to our first topic about Labor Day, why is this war against our workers? Why is this war against our teachers?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this constant battling with our. Do we really want one Guyana?
Mm-hmm.
Or look, this is going to create some sort of firestorm. Or is our one Guyana about what a man from Europe had almost 100 years ago? He had one race,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a master one. So, where really are we going here? Where that we are sifting through and looking for enemies and looking for and creating enemies and opponents that really are not there. I think you want, that's why I'm on this program. I know that I want a different Guyana, a better Guyana. We do not get it when we lambaste and derogate our judges, when we derogate each other,
Mm-hmm.
when we go out of our way to show how vicious we can be. How vicious. I mean, you want to disagree. Look, I think the judge erred. I think the judge erred, and I think the judge went too far in certain aspects of it. I think he's capable of that. Jagdev is not an unwise man. He is not a fool. Never let that be said.
Mm-hmm.
But everything he does has a purpose. Who is he riling up? What
Mm-hmm.
is he setting up for? What bigger situation? Is it the oil bill that I'm here is being drafted, which is outside the scope of our discussion? So you're setting this up now, so you bypass the judicial system by saying
Yeah.
this is where we are. But let me say this to you: I think the CCJ has overturned laws. One of them had to do with cross dressing or something like that, if I remember well. The laws, and so that was one. There was another one that I can't recall right now.
The
So
Bisram case. The Bisram case.
okay, the Bisram case. Now,
Yes. Mhm.
going back, presumptuous is a hard word. You know from the street, Dr. Hines, and our audience knows it. You tell a man to his face, you know you really presumptuous,
That's right.
unless he's your friend, you can put one box for you,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So, I
You're
mean,
fussing me.
yes, you just insult the man. You just drag him down. You just do to he what he is not. And that is where I have the difficulty with my brother, the vice president. Look, an Indian man, I don't think I ever said this on this program. An Indian man called me a day. He said, man, you gotta stop the thing what you do, you know. I said, what's that? He said, when you called Jack Dave, brother Jack Dave, in them thing we is right, he said, you're diluting it.
Mhm.
I said, but Bano, this is what I know. This is what I believe in. So, I mean, for me, it's inconceivable to me that I will say, in my capacity as an ordinary citizen or any other thing, to say that a judge is presumptuous. I say you're wrong. I agree with you. I got problems with that. But that's as about as far as I go. I think his choice of words could have been
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have registered his disapproval, his disagreement, in a strong way, but not crude, in that crude manner that was intended to send so many messages. You incount, you, I am going to deny you. I am going to show you that you is a little boy. You might be a judge on whatever, but we gonna overcome that. I mean, in street, that's what it come down to. Look, we have to do better. The vice president, I'm appealing to him. I'm sure his people are listening to this and they're going to go through it. He can do better and he must will himself and develop uh, that sensitivity, develop that sanity. I ask myself, will the man losing the mind? He must develop that sanity to care about how, when he does these things, what message is it sending to all these investors, foreign investors that he cares so much about? What kind of tongue is this? This is the Badlands. What I mean. This is a frontier that ain't got no boundaries, no limits of civility where civility is concerned. Those are the things that I think has to feature prominently in the way that the vice president communicates. This is not the menu, it's the presentation. So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But in
Mhm.
this case, it's both what and how he say it, and when he say it. And then when you bring all these things together, when you fuse them together, you end up at a place that is like, look, this is not good for Guyana. It's not good for our politics. It's not good for our judiciary. It's not good for our young people. It's not good for our students who are saying, well, where does respect start when there's so much disrespect? When disrespect is the norm of the day, the culture of the moment, then where's the room for respect, mutual respect, to have that kind of conversation that takes us to another level?
GHK Lall here tonight. Good evening to all of you, those of you who are joining us late. Yes, it's Politics 101. Please share the link. I noticed we have a full school tonight without you all sharing the link. Please share the link. Please share the link. We still have a few minutes more to go. Please share the link. I please also go to YouTube and like our new channel, Open Word with Dr. David Hines. That's our new YouTube channel. Open Word with Dr. David Hines. Please go there and follow, like, do what you have to do so that we can grow that new Facebook, that new YouTube channel, and so on. I also would like, again, my condolences to the Booker family on the passing of the matriarch, Miss Booker. She was 101 years old. I think was going to be 102 this year. And she has gone to the maker. We, on behalf of Politics 101, would like to um, give our condolence to the family. That family is on this program from day one, every day, one, two, three, four, the Bookers on. And I know it's a big family, the Booker family and the Gentle family, lots of grandchildren, great grandchildren, great grandchildren, niece, nephews. Our condolences to them. If we make a lot of it, it was because she was a fixture in our village for decades. For decades, one of the cadre of women who led the way in business. We now have the big name entrepreneurship for it. Well, those ladies knew about entrepreneurship and taught us about it long ago. And she certainly was a fixture, along with her sisters. That entire family's business lady, them, Miss Booker, Miss Canil, Miss Mary Marshall, Miss Bacchus, um, all the sisters, and cousin Sheena, sister who's still there. I didn't get to collect my Marby from her this last time when I was home, and when I saw her in church, she gave me a good tongue lashing. I have to make sure that I go and collect my Marby first thing when I land. Auntie Sheena, when you go by, she may never see people play such clean. This lady always clean to the bottom, always clean. She cousin, she nephew back and say, when you go by Auntie Sheena and your food fall along the floor, you're not going to dust them off, you put it back in your mouth. Just so. Wonderful family and a fixture in our village. Condolences to them. Um, GHK, you talked about a petroleum commission, and we are hearing talk about this commission coming on board. And you have some, I think, interesting thoughts on the coming on board of petroleum commission. Talk to us.
A petroleum commission, any commission, is only as good as the people on them.
There you go.
Is only as good as what the people that are on them bring to the table. And when their first objective is what is in the interest of the people, then we start in a good place. Not about we're going to please the leader, not about what is going to accrue to the favor of the man or woman who put me here, but what is going to be good for the people of Guyana. A petroleum commission, I mean, what we got that's going to be bigger than that? Let me lapse in the Creolese here. What is bigger than this isle that we got here? So the Petroleum Commission, you get 5, 7, 9, how many with technical advisors, and you devolve from where it is right now, this oil czar that is limitless. It's limitless and it's omnipotent, right? It's almost godly or godlike in the range of power and authority. Good. You get a petroleum commission and you put people of principle on there. Guyanese men and women who are honorable, who pride themselves, my fellow citizens, on doing right, on behaving ethically, and doing right by the people of this country. We're gonna be humming. We're gonna be singing like Sparrow and Bob Marley and Calypso Rose. because they will do good for us. But if we get a petroleum commission that follows what has been happening in a number of the places we have, who who only think about what pleases the people above, the guy above, who is about, well, how this thing gonna come across? How will this thing register overhead? You know what I mean by overhead,
Mm.
right? If that's the first consideration, or if that's the driving force behind their deliberations, then we might as well we ain't got no damn petroleum commission, right? Because it's a nine turnout, and you're telling me it's a six, or however this thing is work. Here's this: we need a petroleum commission. We need people like Vincent Adams on it. We need people like Dr. Vincent Adams on it. The
Hmm.
one man who they making a difference every thing they say, off you go, right? Off you go. We want people like you around here. So you tell me, if you got time for Vincent Adams, who you gonna want to put on the Petroleum Commission? Who know about this, how these things work and should work, given where he was and given where how he's been trained. You get men of his caliber, not the people that what we see in them commission of this and investigating the and they sit down here and tell and the law says we must have this and so therefore we have one. We got to get people that put this country first. We got to get people that put this country first. And I feel we have some of them. We don't have many, but we don't want those people around. Jagdeo, Dr. Jagdeo, that will get me in more trouble than you and Dr. Ali, right? Hear this part. If the thing means so much to them, if it means so much to them, and good Lord, we know how authentic or not the the thing where we there, right? In this country. If it means so much to them. Here's the story. Then we we need that kind of we need the kind of commission that will do justice by the Guyanese people. We drawing out money for look at something. We drawing out money from the fund, New York fund, our fund. And we don't know what happening to it. Labor Day coming tomorrow, and our people are crying. Starbrook News at chapter 73 on its cost of living weekly series. It's been to the place by Arthur Chung Center, right? And people are saying, right? One woman said, I don't know how we live in. Something to that effect.
Hmm.
We drawing out all this money and making plans to draw out more. We have to have a check and balance, and the Petroleum Commission offers us that. A viable petroleum commission that is people of integrity and with the right ideas in mind. And we are going to get full value from our petroleum dollar and full oversight of what we're going on 120 miles from here. In terms of what are these people really doing? How much oil they're pumping out there? What else they're doing into the atmosphere? And we're really going on with this God-given wealth of ours that we really don't know squat much about. We really don't know much about, other than what we are being told in drips and drops. We need to change that reality. And if we get a vibrant petroleum commission, we have taken the first steps in that direction.
We have taken the first steps in that direction. And of course, our oil and gas industry is really important to us at this moment. And we can't keep our eyes off of that sector of our economy. We just cannot keep our eyes off of it. GHK, they went to Geneva, the government and it parted G. And there, of course, we were perhaps the only country where there was a square off between the government and the opposition at an international forum. Your thoughts?
Well, Ipadachi has been beating the drum and ringing the bell. What is happening in this country, to this umbrella organization, is that it is being marginalized, ostracized, demonized, and criminalized. You're talking about fraud, well, then charge the people. Give you the facts. But you drop that hollow wolf in the theater or hollow fire, and then
Hmm.
you go on your way, right? And you deal with them now. I thought that the prodigy really, in the very brief thing that I saw, moment I saw, said, well, look, we are not being dealt with. African people, black people are not being dealt with in a fair and just manner. And the sharing of the resources we know, the government says, well, it's not so, and they have their own counter narrative, and really is those who are in it know it. Why you taking away the money, the subvention? Isn't that the same thing you're trying to do with the teachers when special promises are made outside of the bargaining, the collective bargaining setup? Isn't this divide and conquer, this splitting apart, right, of a constituency for political gain? Are you still talking to me about oneness? So I think Geneva, that again, Ipadaji had a forum to state its case, and it did so well. It didn't come up in the United Nations human rights thing, I think, very specifically,
Hmm.
but this issue is not going away. It's not going away, and I think there's going to be another. My belief is that there's going to be another decade, and you can enlighten us about that.
Yes, yes, they've agreed to another decade.
Yes. So how this is going to play out here, and how long the PPP government, the president and the vice president, who are the lead charges here, are going to hold on to where they are, I really, it remains to be seen. And this is what you've got to understand. I think you were talking again in your recital. Resentments are overflowing. People are not blind. They are not stupid. They see this impasse. They see this impasse and more being directed at their people, whilst there's this imbalance, this skew, this tilt to the other way, and you're telling me that you've been fair to me. They see that their people are being insulted. They see that those who stand up and speak for them are being dragged down. You talk about resentment. You took a long time to get to that word. I was wondering when you're going to get there. And I'm saying the resentments are simmering. They are simmering. And you can only contain these things for a while. You live in the United States a lot of the time, Dr. Hines. I have for a very, very long time. We know about a power that is very comprehensive in the United States that is being challenged in many fora in the US because of what is happening in Gaza.
Yes, and I'm glad you went there because that's where I was going to close off with. So go right
And 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 part of this, part of what is what happened in the 80s with South Africa.
there. Hmm.
What's the word they're using now? Divestment.
Hmm.
Do I have that right? Yes.
Yes, yes, that's what the students are calling for. Yes.
Divestment. So this thing has taken on. It started in October 7th, then it went to Gaza and Rafah and so on and so forth, and Khan Yunis. And and now they're saying, well, look, man, you've gone so far, and now we are going to take this. So take this where we are in Colombia, way back in the 60s, I think 68, there was that sit down and so on and so
Right,
forth.
right, right.
And now we have that there. Here, our student life seems to be pretty dormant because
Yeah.
of our division.
Yes.
However, why I raised that was to record the point that resentments build and build and build until they cannot, till the cocoa broke down.
Hmm.
till the coca give away, and then there's this cascade of differences that overwhelm. I mean, the thing coming is no longer about, you can't play the whole card now about anti this and anti that. Say we're talking about justice here. We're talking about making right what is wrong, and that's where we are in Guyana with it, Padaji. You let this thing go. You got a problem, and it's a legitimate one. Then I think you need to table it very, very publicly and pursue it, to the end. Don't drop these stink bombs, these accusations, these revilements against Vincent Alexander or other people or myself for standing for these causes, and then pull back and say, well, and stay silent and leave your flunkies to run with it after and try to defend what was done before. If we are going to be true to ourselves and if we are going to get to a place for a better Guyana, then we've really got to have a revolutionary change here in the upper echelons, in their minds and in their practices, policies and practices, or else that change is going to come from the ground.
Or else that change is going to come from the ground. And that's what we keep saying over and over on this program and other programs, that the resentment that is being nurtured by the PPP's intransigence is really going to hit the fan one of these days. We try our best here. We try our best to keep this thing as civil as we can. We try our best. We are being blamed for sending people berserk, but no, it's not us. I have to endure, as you heard, Gabriel. You know, the real rebuke for even calling them Mister. I mean, you know, I know what it means. That is why I'm saying I know what it means. It's the resentment that is coming out there. The resentment. Yes.
Yes, and so if something as mundane as Mister, however you have meant it or
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
said, however it is extended, like I say Mister and I spell it Mistah,
Right.
right? In my writings, you must have seen that, and there's a
Yes.
meaning to
Yes.
that. And when I say massa, I know what I mean, right?
Exactly.
And the people who are the objects of it are identified. They know what I mean too,
Yes.
right? So here's this. There are many ways to skin a cat. You're looking for respect, you got to earn it. You're looking to be honored, you've got to have done things to deserve it. So let's go back to that thing about resentment. If listeners or readers or people talking to the neighbor over the fence, or their colleagues, they got family, or the children who are soldiers, or the friends who are public servants, and they say, man, thing really hard. But and it shouldn't be that way. And then the conversation gain legs from there. These things multiply exponentially. They don't add up, they multiply. And as time goes by and nothing in given, then you know what? They just intensify. So if you getting call out, and I think genuinely so and angrily so, and I disagree with that, right? For Mister, right? For Mister, imagine what else is underneath
There you go. There you go. There
for
you go.
bigger things than that, more deplorable and appalling things than that.
There you go. See, GHK Lall here tonight. GHK, I think we're coming down to program time. Your closing thoughts?
We started out with labor.
Uh-huh.
Tomorrow is Labor Day. To our fellow Guyanese, retired workers, current workers, workers to be, let us dig deep and through the grace of God, make the best of it. Not just the 24 hours or the 12 waking hours, and the time we share in camaraderie with brethren in the programs planned for tomorrow. But let us understand that the dignity of our labor must be respected, and the dignity of our persons, black, brown, Amerindian, and all in between, must count for something that is extraordinary. And with that, I say good night to everyone.
And good night to you, and thanks again for coming through and for lending your wisdom and your perspectives to our program. We are obviously invariably enriched by it. And this struggle, it has to be a struggle on all fronts, and it has to be taken one day at a time. And today, you have done your turn, and we thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Thank you. And thank you, the audience, for staying with us and for putting up sometimes with what you think um, little slips by us. And I heard those of you who express dissatisfaction with referring to Jack Dio as Mr. I know the origins of it. I know where it comes from. It's come from that deep place of resentment. And I want them to see the battle that we have, even among ourselves. Even among ourselves. I'm from the old school, so Mr. comes relatively easy to me, even when I'm using it in a non-complimentary way. Because when I'm talking about Jack Dio, I'm really using it in the uncomplimentary. But the fact of the matter is that I use Mr. And if our people feel so strongly that those of us who try to give voice to their feelings should not be referring to those people in complimentary ways. It says where they've pushed our people. But we've got to stay with the struggle. I just want to let you all know that I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. We'll try as much as possible to see how we adjust, but we hear where you stand. And if leadership means anything, it is that you must hear with the ears of the people, speak with the voice of the people, think with the mind of the people. I'm paraphrasing Lasana Kwesi, one of the poets of the Trinidad Black Power movement. Lasana Kwesi, I had the honor of meeting him a few years ago in Trinidad. But grew up on his poems that were introduced to us as little boys by people like John Cromwell and Ras Michael June, who read widely, and they were aware of people like Lasana Kwesi and Lancelot Lane, I think it was, and people of that nature, long before dub poetry became a thing. We got to think with the mind of the people, or hear with the ears of the people, and speak with the voice of the people. And so when you all express the resentment, we have to take note of it. We have to take note of it, and I've taken note of it, and I hope the PPP takes note of it. That is what you are developing in the opposite community, and you are telling them you want them to go and join your party. And they are conscious of the way you're beating up on them every day. And they want nothing to do with you, even to call you Mr. I hope the PPP leadership, I hope you all are listening. I hope you all are listening. Till tomorrow, I'll be back as usual, same time, same place, tomorrow.